So today I am walking through estrogen dominance, what it is, how it relates to autoimmune disease, and how we can reverse it. So let's all be honest here, being a woman is really hard. The last thing we want to deal with is estrogen dominance. So this imbalance in hormones may explain why some women experience irregular periods, bloating, unexplained weight gain, all of which are not normal. It is not normal to have these symptoms, even though we chalk it up to our menstrual cycle and think it's, everyone has it. It is not normal. So to make things worse as well, if you have an autoimmune disease, keeping your hormones in balance can prevent flares, and it can keep inflammation away. So if you are having, if you have estrogen dominance and you have an autoimmune disease, you may be experiencing more symptoms, which can be, kind of on top of estrogen dominance, having more symptoms. It's not fun. All right, so what is estrogen dominance? So there are two major female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. There needs to be a very delicate balance between these hormones for the female reproductive system to work. So estrogen dominance is when there is an elevated estrogen level as compared to progesterone. So you're looking at the ratio between the two. And there are a few reasons why this happens. One reason could be because your body is overproducing estrogen. So your estrogen levels are high. So this is sometimes caused by hormone replacement therapy that's not managed properly. It can be caused by using birth control or carrying excess body fat. When you do have excess body fat, your adipose tissue or your fat cells do produce more estrogen. So that could be a reason why you're producing more estrogen. Second reason is insufficient estrogen excretion. So estrogen excretion, basically removing estrogen from your body, it relies on several body systems to work properly. So first, it has to be metabolized, and there's a couple of different pathways that it can go on. One is a preferred pathway, and the other one is a more inflammatory pathway. So depending on which one your body is kind of gravitating to, that can affect it. And then it follows a two-phase process in the liver to break down properly. So besides the two-phase process, it then needs to be excreted by the large intestine. So the two major organs that it kind of are in play here are your liver and your intestine. So if your liver is overloaded, or if you have any sort of intestinal issues like overgrowth, imbalance in your microbiome, anything like that, the excretion will not happen efficiently. The third reason is you are not producing enough progesterone. So this hormone is very sensitive to stress. So if the body is stressed, your progesterone production will suffer. What are the symptoms of estrogen dominance, and how is it diagnosed? Okay, so the symptoms are not that pretty. They include things like mood swings, irritability, decreased sex drive, exaggerated PMS symptoms, irregular periods, bloating or water retention, unexplained weight gain, anxiety, hair loss, insomnia or trouble sleeping, fatigue, fertility issues, brain fog, and hot flashes and night sweats. All right, so how do you test for it, or how do you know that you actually have it? So if you are, a lot of those symptoms could be a lot of other things too, right? But if you're noticing exaggerated symptoms, you can't figure out what is going on, it is best to test your estrogen and progesterone levels. So that's the best way to make sure that you have estrogen dominance. So there's several ways you can do this. There are blood tests, there are urine tests, and there are saliva tests. They are all used to measure hormones. Many functional practitioners use what is called a Dutch test, which is an at-home saliva and urine test. This test you can also use to measure things like cortisol and melatonin and testosterone and DHEA, which can give you kind of a more complete picture of what the underlying issue is. I also use Dutch testing for HPA axis dysfunction. If you missed that whole discussion, check that out. That was back in July, I think. I don't know. Time is going so fast. I'm losing track of time. But I have some blog posts on HPA axis dysfunction and Dutch testing as well. All right. So how is estrogen dominance related to autoimmune disease? So estrogen levels can be either protective or inflammatory when it comes to autoimmune conditions. So different diseases are affected by either an increase or a drop in estrogen levels, and it really depends on the underlying inflammatory mechanism. This is a fairly complicated topic, and so I did write a couple of blogs on this, so you can go back to my blog on August 4th, and then the one that I had just posted on Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, to read more about that. But it basically comes down to when you have a autoimmune disease, usually it's an imbalance in two different types of T helper cells. T helpers or cells are or helper T cells, sorry. I haven't had my coffee this morning. They are a major part of your adaptive immune system. So some autoimmune diseases are more dominant in your helper T1 cells versus helper T2, and some are more dominant. There's an imbalance there, so you have more helper T2 than helper T1. And depending on which one it is, estrogen can affect you differently. So higher estrogen levels can actually be inflammatory for things like rheumatoid arthritis, but they can be protective for diseases like lupus. So it depends on your disease and your underlying condition. But check out those blogs. There's a lot more information about that there. Okay, how can we reverse estrogen dominance? So both diet and lifestyle can help bring these hormones back into balance. So here are my top nutrition tips for reversing estrogen dominance. My first one, which I tell everyone to do, is switch to an anti-inflammatory diet. So anti-inflammatory diets are not only for autoimmune diseases, they're for everyone because pretty much every chronic disease is caused by inflammation. So changing your diet can benefit you no matter what is going on in your body. But inflammation, on its own, exacerbates hormone imbalance. So the best place to start, and what I call kind of the low-hanging fruit, is to remove added sugars and processed foods. So from there, if you're still having issues, there are a lot of other kind of common inflammatory foods that, may affect you. Some of these include things like gluten, dairy, nightshades, grains, eggs, soy, even nuts and seeds. So again, everyone is different. You have to figure out what is your trigger. But again, start with sugar and processed foods. You will probably feel a lot better. And if not, you need to dig a little bit deeper. All right, the second one is include liver boosting foods. So because your liver is responsible for excreting estrogen and breaking it down and making sure that your body gets rid of the excess so you don't have high levels, it's really important that you keep your liver functioning properly. So if your liver is overloaded or, sluggish, estrogen will not be efficiently removed from your body. So one of the best foods to support your liver are cruciferous vegetables. Things like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. They contain a compound called glucinolates, which have been shown to increase the phase 2 metabolism of estrogen in your liver. And phase 2 tends to be the one that is a little bit more inefficient. So phase 1 is pretty, efficient. Phase 2 is a little bit inefficient. So if you need to boost kind of your phase 2, try to eat more cruciferous vegetables. The third tip, increase fiber. So fiber helps pull estrogen out of your body. When estrogen reaches your large intestine, it combines with all of those indigestible fibers that you hopefully are eating in your diet, and it pulls it out of circulation. So eating a high fiber diet can help lower circulating estrogen. So in fact, if you're switching to an anti-inflammatory diet, your fiber intake will naturally increase. This is because fiber is found in whole foods like vegetables and fruit and whole grains. So even doing things like adding like flaxseed and chia seeds to your salads, you can add it to yogurt, to smoothies, or even to your breakfast cereal is a great way to increase fiber. Also remember to increase your water when you are increasing fiber. If you go too quickly up in fiber, like if you eat a lot of it at once and your body's not used to it and you're not drinking enough water, it can actually block your system up. And you don't want that to happen. So if you start, just a tip, when you start increasing fiber, increase water at the same time. All right, my last diet tip, cutting out alcohol. I know, I'm such a killer. I'm such a Debbie Downer, especially coming up on the holiday weekend, but alcohol metabolism mainly occurs in your liver. So when you drink alcohol, every metabolic process in your body basically stops and focuses its attention on getting alcohol out because it's toxic. So the less alcohol you drink, the more estrogen your liver can process. All right, so living with estrogen dominance can be a pain. But the good thing is there are plenty of things you can do to get these hormones back in balance.